Hello and welcome back to What the 40k podcast with me, Si.
And me, Jay.
And this is episode 6. This one is all about the Horus Heresy.
Indeed. So last episode was the Chaos Gods. We've swung around the 40k universe, and we're now at the Horus Heresy. The very, very messy Horus Heresy.
So if you haven't listened to our previous episodes, go back and listen to them, because that gives you everything you sort of need as a run-up to this episode, where, for lack of better terminology, shit hits the fan.
Yeah, absolutely. This is arguably the most important thing that happened in the 40k lore. 30k, but 40k lore.
Big fan, a lot of shit.
Affects everything. It's literally everything. This is basically where it all went wrong.
Yeah. And it was going so well, right?
Yeah, it kind of was. So if we start at where we kind of stopped when we were talking about Horus as a Primarch, when we could have been the Primarchs episode, but we're now at the latter parts of the Great Crusade. So around M31, humanity's actually doing pretty well. The Emperor's done his whole Daddy of the Year award and made his Primarchs.
Congratulations.
18 of the 20.
Well done.
Yeah, and giving them the command of their Space Marine legions. Everybody's off reconquering huge portions of the galaxy, and everything is going pretty damn well.
Yeah, worlds are now getting taken under the Imperium, their banner, and it's looking good. It's looking bright. Too bright.
Absolutely.
Too bright for that universe.
Yeah, and you know what they say: if something seems too good to be true, it's because it is.
Because it is.
They had the Imperium had a massive victory against the Orcs at Ullanor, and out of the blue, the Emperor randomly decides that he's going to announce somebody as War Master. Now, from what you know about the Primarchs thus far, which one are you picking to be War Master?
Well,
so leader of the military forces of the Imperium.
Yeah, so obviously the sort of the choice that a lot of people would have went for is the Ultramarines guy, Robot Gorilla Man.
Yeah, Robot Girly Man.
Yeah, Rabute Gilliman. He would be the obvious choice, because he was already doing what the Emperor wanted to do. If you go back and listen to that episode, basically he was doing what the Emperor's trying to do anyway, but on a smaller scale. So the obvious choice would be for him to lead the charge, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's kind of second and third places there as well. You've got Lionel Johnson would be up there. Sanguinius would be up there. The Emperor didn't do any of that, because there's how good would the story be if everything just went perfectly well? So instead, he picked Horus Lupercal, which obviously, as we know from our episode, he'd found first and spent loads and loads of times with, done loads of stuff. So that's great. But there is a problem with all of this, and it's not just because Horus is a douchebag. It is if you had 18 sons, and you might
I will not have 18 sons. Don't say I might. I'm good with one boy, one girl. I would rather rip it off completely. Turn me into a Ken doll.
Yeah.
Don't pause in between sentences like that.
If you did have 18 superhuman sons with massive egos, would you publicly announce that one of them was your favourite?
Well, no, because that will cause a rift. I've got one boy and one girl, and if I be nice to one, the other, they're your favourite then, are they? Oh my God. And that's just two of them. And they're not superhuman. So
yeah. And they don't have the egos. And all
I don't know about that.
The guys have got. Yeah. So he nailed on Horus as War Master, and then just basically fucked off. He went back to go and play around with the Webway project, but nobody knew that. So he just left and was like, there you go, Horus. If you could just carry on trying to reconquer the galaxy, that would be great. Thanks very much.
Yeah, so the Webway was... the Eldari had this, didn't they? Basically. Yes. So they had their own sort of version, or whatever.
Yeah, so it's faster than... Well, it's not quite faster than a light travel, I don't think, but it's a safe way to cross great distances in space.
Yeah, in the previous episodes we discussed how they get from one place to another really fast, and that is going through the warp, which is full of chaos demons, and it's essentially hell. That was that episode. But the Webway was a back door, if you will. Instead of doing that, you can snuggle your way around and travel safely without the demons and the hell bit.
Which is bad. So obviously, as we know, because we've seen loads and loads of the media and the videos for games and different bits and bobs. Horus obviously falls to chaos and launches the traitor legions and all that sort of stuff. But before he fell, the seed was already kind of planted. Lorgar had already turned towards chaos, and Erebus was spreading these warrior lodges. They were it's almost Masonic order type, kind of hidden little groups that were all internally corrupted, and spreading them and corrupting other legions as they went. Magnus at this point is messing around with the warp. Angron just hates everybody because we know why, especially the Emperor. Perturabo is being bitter and sulking like Perturabo always does. Mortarion doesn't exactly have the best dad ever mug from his experiences with the Emperor, and Kaz is just being Kaz. It's everything is set, everything is ready. All it needs is just that little spark to set it off.
And that spark came.
That spark did come in the form of Davin's moon. And it's Erebus, unsurprisingly. The person that everybody hates. So Erebus is a spark, because of course he is. So basically, during the campaign on Davin's moon, Horus gets wounded using a chaos-tainted anatheme blade type thing. And unfortunately, this is something that Horus just can't walk off. He's basically dying. So his officers panic and take him to the Temple of the Serpent Lodge, which is exactly where Erebus wants him. Horus undergoes a ritual and experiences visions showing him a horrifying future where the Emperor is worshipped as a god. Horus is forgotten. Statues are honouring the loyal Primarchs. Humanity is living under a tyrannical Imperium. And the clever bit is that he isn't just showing that it's his rebellion as the generating cause for this. He just sees the end result, basically. So he thinks that something else is going to cause it, and he doesn't realise he's being manipulated by Erebus. Magnus tries to intervene and warn Horus that it's Erebus manipulating him, but Horus chooses rebellion anyway. And then that's where we start. That's where we start the slippery slope, because Horus thinks he's trying to prevent a future without realizing that the future he's trying to prevent is the one that he's causing by taking those actions. Because chaos is tricky, as we found out when we talked about the Chaos Gods. Oh yeah,
he got duped. But I'm the new guy, right? So you know a hell of a lot more than me, and I've tried not to look too much into the lore of 40k, but you do get sucked in quite quickly and quite easily. But there's that much of it; it's difficult. But the blade that Horus got struck with, Erebus brought it there, didn't he?
Yes.
As far as I'm aware, so all this was a plan,
planned.
And he brought the blade there, hoping and knowing that if he gets stabbed with it, it's game time, baby. So
and I think the initial kind of interactions with the guys on Davin's moon was actually was going really well, and it was going to be fine. And it was Erebus's influence that they're kind of stealing stuff and taking stuff away, and there was accusations of theft and all sorts of stuff flying around. And it was all caused by Erebus. So he kind of sabotaged what would have been a peaceful exchange and a peaceful compliance. But he sabotaged it, and it all went wrong, and Horus ended up getting wounded. So
I should have called my son Erebus.
You imagine. So off the back of that, Horus has picked rebellion. Like I said, he thinks that the future that Erebus showed him was what happens if he doesn't rebel against the Emperor, when in actual fact it was the other way around. But Erebus just let him believe that he was making the right choice. So Horus starts building his rebellion, doesn't just immediately go, surprise, heresy. He prepares. He needs to get Primarchs on his side, and eventually, through lots and lots and lots of books that you can read in the Horus Heresy series, he ends up getting 9 of the legions on side.
I mean, so that's a large number, right?
Yeah, well, it's half, conveniently
you know what I mean?
Half.
That is a large number to persuade.
Yeah.
Although, from what I know of Horus, before the douchebaggery occurred and he did fall to chaos, he was actually meant to be a pretty alright brother to
Yeah,
the
he was,
others.
yeah,
He was
yeah.
pretty good. He's
Yeah,
good
he
at his
was a
job.
decent
He was
guy.
good. He's going around. He was helping them, and he was
Yeah.
having a laugh with them and stuff. But then this happened, and I suppose that may have helped the other guys that he got in with him to go, oh yeah, Horus is a cool dude. He lent me 20 fags that time.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
he absolutely played on previous relationships. When you look at the people that he got on his side and the people that he didn't, kind of, he was very clever in who he targeted. Mainly because some of these legions were already weak to the corruption and the temptation of chaos anyway. And Erebus and his guys have been sowing seeds already, so some of them fell really, really easily. You look at somebody like the World Eaters, where they've been led by Angron, who hates the Emperor. Just a suggestion of rebellion, and he was absolutely all over it.
He found, because Angron was praying and believed. Well, he thought the Emperor was a god, and the Emperor was telling him not to treat him as a god, etc. Wasn't it? Was that
Angron?
Oh, that's word bearers. Sorry.
Yeah,
word bearers. Yeah. But yeah, so because of that, and he wanted to believe in something because he wanted faith. When they offered him actual gods in the form of chaos gods, well, there's my faith right there. The Emperor doesn't want to be a god. These are literal gods, and I am 100% in.
Yeah, for a guy whose whole personality is believing in something and faith. The appeal of chaos for Erebus was like, oh yeah, this is
this is brilliant. Perfect. I like this. Yeah.
So he was in Club 1830, all inclusive, living his best life,
having a pina colada.
Yeah. But anyway, so the 9 who joined Horus were the sons of Horus, obviously. Yeah. Well, nearly all of them. There's a couple of high-profile characters who you would fall in love with if you read the books that didn't. But anyway, so the Sons of Horus, Emperor's Children, Death Guard, World Eaters, World Bearers, Iron Warriors, Night Lords, Alpha Legion, and the Thousand Sons. Those are the 9. Early on, the Thousand Sons were a little bit because Magnus was still trying to warn the Emperor. He was still trying, and this is where the whole Magnus did nothing wrong thing.
Yeah, exactly. I know it's coming.
He was trying to do the right thing. He just did it a really bad way, and as a result, he kind of screwed the Emperor a little.
Yeah. So as far as I'm aware, along with that was the Emperor was doing his webway project to create safe travel for everyone, and because Magnus was, like you said, he was trying to do the right thing technically, but the Emperor told him not to fuck around with the warp and stuff like that.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Magnus tried to send a message to the Emperor using warp magic and stuff, and that screwed up everything.
Yeah. So effectively, he tried to project himself rather than just sending a message through the normal means, the astropaths and stuff, because he was worried about it being intercepted by
dropping Horus. A text on a Nokia 3310, because I guarantee they're still going.
It wasn't you couldn't slip into the Emperor's DMs, you know what I mean? He had to. So instead he tried this enormous act of sorcery where he tried to project himself through the warp to Terra, but in doing so he smashed through a load of kind of protected psychic barriers that the Emperor had put up in the webway. That, but by all accounts, demons have been scratching at these barriers for ages and ages and ages, and unable to get through, and Magnus just kind of smashed through them all.
Yeah.
Which as a result meant that demons flooded into the human version of the webway, and the Emperor then is kind of forced to remain on the Golden Throne to contain that breach, which is massive, because it effectively removes. It'd be like playing chess and taking the king off of or the queen off of one side, because you've isolated the Emperor. And something else that Horus had also done, which again he was really clever, is the Primarchs he knew wouldn't turn, because he was War Master. He used being War Master to tactically position them all over the galaxy, so they wouldn't be able to react in time. So the Ultramarines were sent towards Calth, the Blood Angels were sent to Cygnus, The Dark Angels were off campaigning everywhere, and then Russ is about to get very, very busy dealing with Magnus and Prospero. So he tied the guys that he knew wouldn't follow him up or move them as far away from Terror as possible. Which, when we get, he knew what he was doing. But of course he did, because he learned it all off of the Emperor. So
these are the guys that could kick our asses and cause a bit of bother. So I will tell them to disappear across the other side of the universe.
Yeah. So as we know, because we talked about it in the Primarchs episode, in reaction to Magnus screwing the webway, the Emperor sends Russ to go to Prospero with the instructions to arrest Magnus. But that effectively becomes something much closer to just burn the entire planet, thanks to kind of Horus really changing the commands from the Emperor. So Prospero burns, as we've talked about, and then Magnus eventually fully embraces Tzeentch, and the Thousand Sons that survived the Space Wolves' initial invasion escape off into the warp, and they are then fully on board, what's left of them, with Horus and the rebellion.
Mental, isn't it?
Yeah, it's mad, but very, very clever on Horus's part. You've got to give him his due. He set the deck in his favour. So,
well, and Erebus was in his ear, I think, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And
so it's I don't know whether he was whispering, giving him ideas, whispering in his ear, saying, "Oh, what you should do is, Robot Gorilla Man, launch him the other side of the universe. You won't be a problem."
But I think Horus was smart enough anyway to realise that. I don't think he needed Erebus, but he was certainly because this is the other thing as well for Horus, is he wasn't just the champion of one of the Chaos Gods. So like Magnus got on board with Tzeentch, Mortarion got on board with Nurgle, Angron got on board with Khorne, but Horus was on board with all of them. They were all kind of surging their power into him to make him the best champion possible, to give him the best chance of success. So he was getting the tactical nuance and strategy stuff from Tzeentch. He was getting the anger and the brutality from Khorne. He was getting the best of Bestwell. So he was a bit like Captain Planet, if you're old enough to remember Captain Planet. If you're watching, he's a video. Hero. He was the powers combined. Bad times. Yeah,
because in the last episode was Chaos Gods, we did say that the Chaos Gods don't always align. Their ideas don't align with each other. They're not friends, should we say?
No, they're not bezzers, are they? They are all still playing the great game with each other and trying to outdo each other. But this is kind of the one time that
they high-fived.
They really, united behind their absolute determination to get rid of the Emperor. So, So, Prospero's burned. That's happened. Thousand Sons are fully on board. Everything's great. And then
the rest of them, the ones that are alive have gone back into the warp to escape the wolves.
From that point, the heresy kind of begins openly at this point. Yeah. But Horus now has another problem, and that problem is that not every Marine within the legions that have aligned themselves with him are actually traitors. So there are still some loyalists in amongst the Sons of Horus and the Emperor's Children and the World Eaters and the Death Guard. So there's still people loyal to the Emperor in those legions. Yeah. So a massive HR problem, and he does a really aggressive restructuring program to solve that. So what he decides to do is they identify the loyalist elements within those 4 traitor legions, and they are deployed to Istavan 3 via drop pod. Which is great.
Yeah.
And then Horus then promptly virus bombs the entire planet.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
that's a quick way to get rid of the loyalist elements within those traitor legions.
So in the future, you don't need to give your verbal warning, then your written warning. You just drop pod and nuke them.
Yeah, there's no one-to-one mediation. It's just virus bomb. get rid of the problem.
I mean, we should bring that in actually, because there's a few people.
Yeah, no, it'd be good. Yeah. thinking about it. That could be quite good. However, some actually survive. So, and instead of dying quietly, the loyalists there start fighting back. So Horus had to spend months eliminating the men who were supposed to die immediately, because some of them survived and they were still there, and he couldn't just leave them. He had to get rid of it. So, yeah, he had to spend forces to go down and fight these loyalists, the remaining loyalists on Esteban 3, just to wipe them out. Among them,
slaughter the remaining good ones.
Among them is somebody called Garviel Loken, who becomes a very, very important person. Have you ever heard of Garviel Loken?
I don't know. I haven't.
So he is one of the Lunar Wolves, who eventually became the Sons of Horus. So, and he's an absolute badass, and he's a legend, and everybody loves him. So that's good. Nathaniel Garrow escapes aboard the Eisenstein and carries a warning of Horus's betrayal back towards Terra. So that's the kind of first leak that, actually this is happening, and
stuff's going down.
Space Marine versus Space Marine, which is something that everybody thought they would never ever see. And again, bear in mind, we're talking legions here, not 40k of 1,000 strong chapter. These are 10,000 strong legions. This is huge scale Space Marine versus Space Marine warfare. It's insane, and they've got all of the gear because they were in the middle of doing a Great Crusade. So it was brutal. It was brutal. So after Esteban 3 comes Esteban 5. So at this point now, the Imperium knows that Horus has rebelled, so 7 legions are sent to kind of crush him. The first wave is Iron Hands, Salamanders, Raven Guard. They deploy, they attack Horus, things look like they're going okay. Reinforcements arrive in the form of Iron Warriors, Night Lords, Word Bearers, and Alpha Legion. Excellent. Problem is, they didn't know that those 4 legions had turned traitor. So the Salamanders, Iron Hands, and Raven Guard all thought that the 4, as we know as traitor legions, had arrived as reinforcements to help them fight against Horus. Instead, it basically became an encircled ambush where they just opened fire on the loyalist forces, and those 3 loyalist legions got absolutely devastated. Ferrus Manus fights Fulgrim, so that's your kind of first proper Primarch on Primarch fight that results in Fulgrim killing Ferrus Manus. Vulcan has completely disappeared from the Salamanders, and he's presumed dead. And then Korax manages to escape with the remnants of the Raven Guard, but effectively 3 loyalist legions have been removed as major fighting forces in one battle. That's
mental, isn't it? Yeah, clever. Didn't Ferrus Manus get his head chopped off?
Yeah, there's a song in there. Ferrus Manus got his head chopped off.
There's not a song in there, but with a bit of work,
it should be. Top 10. It should be.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, we talked about the opera, and then Games Workshop, we decided they were going to do it. That was how we first knew that they bugged your house.
Yeah, I know, right? That was weird. That was weird.
It was weird.
Yeah.
At one point, I'm going to release that clip of you singing because it was hilarious.
I hope not. But yeah, so Fulgrim chopped his head off.
And that's 3 legions basically deleted. So you combine that with deleting those 3 legions, and then the fact that he sent the Ultramarines, the Blood Angels, and the Dark Angels off, and the Space Wolves didn't come out of their scrap with the Thousand Suns completely unscathed. So unscathed. Unscaven? That's a different thing. Unscathed. So yeah, the loyalists weren't in a great spot, really.
No, their numbers have dwindled to not much at all. If we're honest, they are struggling.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where now, effectively, we move into the whole Galaxy Burns side quest that Horus took on, which is his famous line of then let the galaxy burn. And this is where basically the heresy stops being one storyline and just splinters out into like 20 disasters all happening simultaneously at the same time, which is why it's so hard to read the bloody books, because they're just jumping around all over the place and books are running parallel to each other. And it's not like they're little short books either. Some of these books are really chunky. So
yeah, I've seen them there. So, they're huge, and there's multiples.
Yes. So rather than
I should get a couple of books, but they are like, and there's like 50 of them.
Yeah. Rather than covering all of these concurrent things that were going on, we'll just kind of focus on sort of 5 of them, really. So, so you've got Calth, which is Lorgar sends the Warbearers against Guilliman's Ultramarines. The Ultramarines think they're preparing for a joint operation, and they're not. The Warbearers launch a devastating surprise attack at Calth. Millions die. Guilliman manages to survive with a little bit remaining from his forces. That wasn't all of the Ultramarines, obviously, but that Guilliman surviving ends up being a fairly significant admin error on Lorgar's part, because Guilliman is fuming now, obviously, as you'd expect.
Yeah.
So, but he shouldn't have escaped. If everything went to plan, Guilliman would have died on Calth, and that would be Guilliman gone. No worries.
Yeah.
And then you had the Shadow Crusade, which is Lorgar and Angeron going after Ultramar, partially to cripple Guilliman because he would lose all of the kind of logistic support, but partly to create the Ruin Storm, which has cut a huge section of the Imperium off from Terra. So the ability for people to reinforce Terra just isn't there.
Yeah,
Angeron during that campaign is dying, basically, because the Butcher's Nails are cranked up to 11 and they're killing him, effectively. Lorgar steps in and saves him. How do you think he saves him?
By nailing in more? I don't know.
No, that'd be a very 40k thing. No. Lorgar saves him by turning him into a demon Primarch.
Yeah, well, that'll do it.
Yeah, because up until this point, Angeron was just a very angry bloke. Not anymore. He is now a demon Primarch. You can't die, really.
His model looks good, though.
It's incredible. It's one that I'm absolutely going to buy one day and build, and probably ruin with a crap paint job, but I'll try.
It does look good, doesn't it?
So cool, probably model. 1-star review for Lorgar's medical treatment there. Probably could have done better, let's be honest. Next up is... Go on.
No, that's fine. I mean, if you were going to die and someone gave you an option, and you're already a bit of a dick.
Or I've got a bit of a headache. Okay, my solution to that is turn you into a demon. Like, it seems a bit excessive.
Oh, I think it's the obvious next step, but carry on.
Yeah. Cygnus Prime is the other one, which is where Horus sends Sanguinius and the Blood Angels into the Cygnus system. This is a trap, obviously, but the intention of the trap is to corrupt Sanguinius, because obviously Sanguinius has got his issues that are built in. The aim is to try and corrupt Sanguinius effectively. Instead, Sanguinius managed to survive and the Blood Angels managed to escape. This is important because Horus was clearly already concerned about Sanguinius, hence why he wanted to corrupt him, because Horus viewed Sanguinius as a brother that could probably rival him both from a kind of military strategic perspective, but also symbolically, and he could really rally the loyalists because of how well loved he was by everybody, and he could potentially convince those that had joined Horus but weren't fully on board to turn back and double agent, double bluff, whatever you want to call it. So Horus has got a real problem with Sanguinius.
Everyone likes Sanguinius. He's got wings. It looks cool.
Yeah, there is a theory, and we kind of touched on it when we were talking about the Chaos Gods and the Primarchs and stuff. But there is a theory that Khorne's first choice was Sanguinius. He wanted Sanguinius as his champion, but he ended up getting Angeron because the opportunity was there, and Sanguinius kept escaping. So if he'd been captured at Cygnus Prime, then it may well have ended up being Sanguinius corrupted too. But you can imagine a Khorne corrupted Sanguinius. That'd be so cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be a model.
Yeah, like permanent Black Rage. It'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Next up is Imperium Secundus. So because the Ruin Storm makes Terra unreachable, Guilliman doesn't know whether the Emperor is even alive at this point. So he thinks potentially the Emperor's fallen. Because we're not seeing anything from the Emperor because he's stuck to the Golden Throne.
Yeah.
So effectively, he creates something called the Imperium Secundus, which is, in Guilliman's view, if the Imperium's gone, we'll just build another one, where effectively Sanguinius becomes the Emperor, Guilliman becomes kind of something called a Lord Warden, almost like the Wall Master, and the Lion becomes the Lord Protector. So they've made their kind of like this Imperium Secundus because they think they're going to have to start again and then kind of glue themselves together to defend against this huge rebellion that Horus is leading.
Yeah.
Then they find out that actually Terra still stands and the Emperor's still kicking around, so the Imperium Secundus is abandoned, and everyone quietly agrees, but perhaps they probably shouldn't mention the whole "we start another Imperium" thing to the Emperor because he'd probably be a bit pissed. So that kind of lasted for a little while, proper flash in the pan, and then it was like, oh no, we gone fucked up. Let's not do that. So they abandoned that. Yeah. And then the last part really kind of stand out. There's loads more, but is Vulcan. So Vulcan is obviously a perpetual, as we know, but Vulcan didn't really know that he was a perpetual. He kind of discovered that he was a perpetual following Istvan. So perpetual obviously meaning that you can regenerate from death, but unfortunately Comrade Curse also discovers this and then proceeds to test the theory repeatedly because Curse is Curse. So he keeps killing Vulcan just to see if he can keep coming back. So it's crazy.
What a nice guy Comrade Curse is.
Oh yeah, great guy. 10 out of 10.
I'm just going to keep killing you and seeing if you're coming back. Oh, he's back. I'm just going to, this time I'll slit your throat. Oh, he's back. This time yeah, great guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Night Lords.
Yeah. So, whilst all this is going on, there is also the war in the Webway, which is while everyone else is fighting across the galaxy, the Emperor is fighting another war entirely because of the breaches that Magnus's psychic shenanigans has made.
So, because Magnus sent that message, like we said earlier, and the Emperor is working on this Webway project, what it did was it started causing rifts around the Webway and Terra, because that's where you're sending a message, rifts into the warp, so demons could potentially come through onto Terra, i.e. Earth itself. So the Emperor had to sit on this chair, the Golden Throne, and basically he was keeping those tears shut. Is that right?
Yeah. So and all the while the Custodes and the Sisters of Silence and the Mechanicum were kind of fighting this brutal secret war, trying to hold back these demons. But it basically becomes impossible. So the Emperor's kind of forced to abandon his dream of humanity using the Webway, and he just kind of seals it shut. Which is huge for the Emperor because that was effectively his end game for humanity. If we no longer needed to use the warp to maintain travel, then a lot of the power of chaos dies. So it's bad times.
If they could skirt around all the chaos, well,
exactly.
They can't be touched by it as much, can they? So, that was good end game. He had the right ideas. Didn't quite pan out though.
So like you said, so essentially now the Emperor is trapped on the Golden Throne, maintaining this seal. He sealed the Webway shut. So he's maintaining the seal. He's kind of trapped there. So after that, Horus goes full chaos. So Horus knows the Emperor is vastly more powerful than he is, so he goes to Molech. So there's a warp gate there which the Emperor has used himself once, and Horus enters. And what happens inside is kind of deliberately mysterious, but he returns enormously empowered by chaos. And from here, Horus basically becomes less rebellious Primarch and more kind of avatar of the four Chaos Gods. And that kind of distinction as we go on becomes increasingly important because it's from returning from that where Horus as a person was in the driving seat before. When he comes back, it's kind of swapped. And now he's properly embraced the four Chaos Gods and he's an avatar of them. And
he's juiced up
more in the driving seat. He's juiced up,
he is massively juiced up.
And then from there we launch into effectively the road to Terra. So from that, Horus has basically got one objective, which is Terra. Loyalists are diving in, trying to stop his advance at places like the Garmin cluster, where Sanguinius and Jagatai Khan and the commanders are sent to delay him. But the campaign becomes one of the largest meat grinders in the heresy, involving like Titan battles and billions of casualties. It's carnage, and the Loyalists effectively lose. But they did achieve something massively important, which is they gave Dawn we haven't really talked about yet, time. So because all the while this has been happening, Dawn has been dawning. He's gone full Bob the Builder mode, and he's been fortifying Terra.
Yeah.
So the losses in that Sanguinius and Jagatai Khan kind of sustained were worth it, because it brought Dawn
they had a job to do, and that was slow down Horus getting to Terra to give everyone else more time to reinforce Terra, like Dawn was doing, and for people like WT Gilliman and anyone else that can get back to Terra to get back and help defend it, hopefully before Horus gets there. So they are just ploughing. So he's on a trajectory to Terra straight, and they are just ploughing in, trying to slow him down, which they, like you said, they do.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, but at a great cost. So, but now,
but at what cost?
At what cost? So then we launch into effectively the Solar Wolf. Horus finally reaches Sol, which is the solar system. But Dawn has kind of transformed the entire solar system into a gigantic fortress. So there are fleets, there are minefields in space, orbital platforms, fortresses, defense lines, everything that Dawn could think of to protect Terra and the Emperor is there. Horus attacks anyway because he's on full juiced up psycho chaos mode, and kind of through conventional warfare, warp sorcery, and traitor infiltration, they managed to break through these solar defenses. But again, it's time. It's taking time. All of this is slowing him down to give the loyalists more time on Terra. But eventually, he breaks through, and he finally reaches Terra, and the hugely famous Siege of Terra begins.
Yeah, big one.
So the Siege of Terra was written, it's a bit weird. So if you read the original Horus Heresy books, what happened is different to what happened in the early lore of like White Dwarf and Codex books, early days of Games Workshop. But then that got rewritten for the Horus Heresy series, and then it got rewritten again for the End and the Death book series, where things changed again. Right. But the version that they're on now with the End and the Death is, I've read it, it's absolutely superb. It's so good. So highly recommend that if you haven't read it, even if you're not going to read all the Horus Heresy because you know the story. Reading the End of the Death is definitely worth it for anybody listening who thinks, I'm not really sure if I want to read all 9,000 books in the Horus Heresy. just jump to the 3 books in the End of the Death and just read those.
Yeah, book. I wouldn't mind.
They're so good. They're so good, honestly.
Yeah.
So Siege of Terra. This is it. This is a big one, and obviously we've skimmed. This we could have spent an hour on each of these little sections that we've covered easily. We're skimming this. This is very much a very light pass on everything that happened.
Yeah, because obviously future episodes we can delve more into things like the full Siege of Terra and what went down.
Yeah. But
this is a skim. This is season 1. This is your basics.
Yeah, exactly.
For so idiots like me.
Yeah. Idiot. I would have gone for a stronger insult there, but we'll see.
Keep it PG, mate.
So this is where basically everything converges now. So Horus has got the Sons of Horus, the Death Guard, Emperor's Children, World Eaters, Iron Warriors, Word Bearers, Night Lords, Titans, Demons, Traitor armies of Traitor Guard, Traitor Mechanicum. He's got a lot.
He's juiced up and he's packing.
Yeah.
That's a sentence no one's ever said about me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then on Terra, we've got the Imperial Fists, Blood Angels, White Scars, Custodes, Sisters of Silence, a load of Titans, the Imperial Army and Imperial Navy, and a load of civvies. And Rogue Dawn. So he's important because effectively he spent years turning the Imperial Palace into the galaxy's biggest concrete bunker. Like if you gave Trump an unlimited budget, it's the sort of thing he would build.
Yeah,
it's just ridiculous. It looks less like a palace and more like some kind of castle. It's insane. But he did a really, really good job. So obviously, because Dawn's built it, Perturabo was really keen to lead as much of the siege as possible on Terra because he hates Dawn and it's very personal. So it's very much the kind of perceived greatest siege master versus the greatest fortifier. And slowly the traitors gradually start to breach Terra's defensive layers, and the kind of official siege summaries track the escalation through the solar war of kind of Perturabo's attritional assault. Then they go to the Saturnine, and then the Titan warfare on Mortis, and then Khan's attack on Mortarion, and the final defense around the Sanctum. So we'll kind of smash through those because that's kind of the main gates. So Saturnine, Dawn of Preach anticipates the Horus's attempt to exploit a weakness in the palace. So the Sons of Horus elite attack, but it's a trap because Dawn's not an idiot, so he's kind of knew that Horus would go there. So it was, you know, it was planned for them. It was encouraged for them to go there so they could kind of ambush him. Traitors take huge losses there, catastrophic losses, including Abaddon, who basically at that point wasn't quite the important character that he is in 40k. So he was still really important, but he wasn't that important. So, you know, he very, very quickly nearly got Game of Thrones, and it didn't matter if you were a main character, he nearly died. And then the White Scars versus the Death Guard. Jagatai Khan launches an attack to retake something called the Lion's Gate spaceport, where he confronts Mortarion. Khan defeats him because he's a badass, but at enormous cost, and he almost gets killed himself. So it's really, really, really messy. Then Angron is the other one, which is a Sanguinius fight, which is again ironic for the whole Khorne Sanguinius thing. But eventually that's really messy, as you can imagine, because you've got little angel dude with wings and big demon dude with wings. Eventually Sanguinius wins, kind of spectacularly. But I'll leave you to read that one because I don't want to spoil that fight because it's pretty epic.
Thanks, mate.
Somebody else that deserves a mention because I'm slightly biased by the background, Sanguinius. So Sanguinius, obviously, from what we talked about, can see the future slightly. So he knows he's going to die. He's seen it. But he keeps fighting.
I forgot about that.
So he is fighting at something called the Eternity Gate, where he gives arguably the best speech ever. Highly recommend you look it up on YouTube. There's lots of voice actors who've recreated it on YouTube, and it's an incredible speech. It's so good. But there's a huge battle at the Eternity Gate, which again deserves its own separate video. The Vengeful Spirit is Horus's big ass ship, which is in orbit. It's got shields up and all that sort of stuff, and all of the defenses have been pushed back. The Eternity Gate is like the last gate to fall. If that falls, that they're in. There's a real. The Imperium is on death's door. It is a proper last stand central at this point, where they think this is it. There's other things going on, like the beacon, the astropathic beacon has been extinguished, so the reinforcements that are racing towards Terra can't see Terra because they've extinguished its beacon. There's all sorts of stuff going on in the background, but in amongst it all, Horus is still just sat on the Vengeful Spirit. He's just sat on a ship, just chilling, watching everything go on.
Netflix and stuff.
And for some reason, he decides to lower his shields. So Horus drops the shields on the Emperor's spirit, on the Vengeful Spirit, which obviously the Emperor and the Imperial forces know. All of a sudden, Horus is vulnerable because they can teleport on board the Vengeful Spirit. The Emperor knows it's a trap. He knows, he's not an idiot. He knows that Horus isn't lowering these shields just because he's made a mistake. He hasn't got this far making mistakes as significant as that. So he knows it's a trap, but he commits anyway. So he comes off the Golden Throne, throws a sacrificial lamb onto the Golden Throne to hold the fort temporarily. Somebody who we'll talk about in another video, who's really important, but kind of someone who's been basically his best friend for years,
right hand man guy, isn't he?
Yeah, but
he steps up.
How he describes the experience of being on the Golden Throne and what he can see and what he feels in the End of the Death series is really insightful to kind of the power of the Golden Throne, if you like. So again, I don't want to spoil it, so we're not going to dive onto that. So that frees the Emperor up. He grabs some dudes, and then they teleport aboard the Vengeful Spirit. It doesn't go very well because the assault force effectively gets scattered through this ship but this ship has been massively warp corrupted, so it's like a full-on hallucination central. People are dealing with all sorts of stuff. It corrupts it. Even there's enough warp energy in the ship that it was even managing to corrupt custodies who were deemed basically uncorruptible, and it's corrupting the minds of the custodies. It's that, the warp power is that strong. So Carnage. In amongst that, Sanguinius goes as well onto the Vengeful Spirit, but Sanguinius somehow manages to get to Horus first, and again, I think it was intentional. I think Horus was concentrating all of his shenanigans on the ship on everybody else that was assaulting to let Sanguinius kind of through on his own, with a view that he would have one last go at trying to corrupt Sanguinius and get him to join him, which gets the commentary on that in the End of the Death is pretty cool, but ultimately the version of Horus that Sanguinius is trying to fight isn't Horus anymore. It is,
he's past that now, isn't he? He's past
it's
juiced
up.
Come on, brother. Horus. Come back to us. Okay.
Yeah. So they have a fight, which is pretty epic. The end result is that Horus kills Sanguinius, and that's the moment that kind of echoes through the Blood Angels and causes the Black Rage, which is, basically nearly destroys the Blood Angels en masse. They start going wild. They go flying. So it kind of, it saves parts of Terra in effect, because the Blood Angels go from fighting fiercely because they're Blood Angels to absolute carnage,
Maniac.
Where they're just carving through everybody, but also including some allies and each other. It gets really messy. So Sanguinius is dead, and then finally Dad arrives. So he's fought his way through. Again, how it's explained in the books is really, really cool, so I don't want to spoil it, but there's loads and loads of stuff they have to deal with to get through. And the assaulting force arrives and confronts the Emperor. They fight. Clearly, it's not Emperor versus Horus anymore. It's not Primarch Horus. It is properly juiced up, swollen,
God-powered Horus.
Yeah, it's crazy. They have this massive fight, which is, again, it's been rewritten multiple times, but the latest version, the End of the Death, is absolutely exceptional. And eventually, the Emperor, who's kind of holding back, trying to convince him to not do what he's trying to do. He strikes Horus down in a way that he talks about people being put back together by chaos. He kills Horus with it varies with his sword, but also a psychic attack and stuff that basically shatters Horus's soul, so he can't be brought back. So he's one of the Primarchs who definitely can't be brought back.
Yeah, he is completely obliterated, body and soul gone.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But the Emperor gets catastrophically wounded in the process. So it's a big trade-off. Imperium and chaos. It's a big trade-off because the Emperor is in a really, really bad way. So the Loyalist forces are on. They manage to get him back to the Golden Throne, back to the palace, and then he gets placed upon the Golden Throne as like his own personal life support.
Yeah,
and he's been there for a wee while.
Yeah, 10,000 years. I mean, if there's one thing to say about the Emperor, that guy has piles.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
100%.
He's going to wake up unless somebody's put one of those rubber rings around his ass.
He's in the hurt locker, isn't he?
Yeah, and that is how we kind of end up with 40k. So Horus is dead. The Traitor Legions retreat and flee back towards the Eye of Terror. The Loyalists have technically won, but they're in a bad way because Malcador is dead, the Emperor's right-hand man. Malcador is dead. Sanguinius is dead. Ferrus Manus is dead. The Emperor is effectively dead. Most of the Imperium is destroyed. The Webway project's ruined, and countless worlds have burned. And the Primarchs will from this point will gradually start to disappear as they often do their own thing. And the kind of optimistic secular empire of the Great Crusade begins transforming into this weird religious authoritarian nightmare that we now know as 40k.
Good time.
So humanity wins, but everything is completely fucked.
Yeah, it's a win for humanity, but it's essentially starting again. We are screwed.
Yeah. Yeah. What comes after that is something called the Scouring, where the surviving loyalists are pursuing the traitors in an attempt to kind of destroy them before they try and get together. And then the loyalists are trying to rebuild what's left of the Imperium, but there's not a lot, which is most of the reason why everybody's so fucking miserable in 40k.
Oh, good times.
Yeah.
So we obviously we discussed Terror a little bit, but how close do you think they were to winning Chaos?
Really close. Really close. I think if Sanguinius and Khan hadn't done as good a job as they did slowing them down, I think that something as small as that would have been the difference.
Yeah, because they had issues as well. From what I've looked at, the Chaos, because I'm not sure at what point they did, but obviously I've sort of been looking into Emperor's Children as my like Chaos sort of guys.
Yeah,
and they sort of, I don't know at what point that's what I'm saying. At some point during the siege on Terror, they stopped doing what they were meant to be doing, their orders, go and attack this, go and attack that. They just stopped that, and I think this is with multiple as well, different legions, and they just started doing what they want, just torturing civvies and just causing havoc throughout the entirety of Terror, just flaying people, torturing
some
people.
Some of the legions fell a lot harder and a lot quicker. So, and it happened with the World Eaters as well. Some of the World Eaters kind of abandoned the tactical objectives and just went feral into a kind of blood rage. But it happened on the Loyalist side as well. You know, you could argue the Dark Angels got massively distracted by kind of the Fallen, and because they were off trying to reignite the Astropath flame thing. I can't remember the name of it. But the beacon on Terror, they were off trying to do that, and I think they were fighting the Death Guard there. But they got massively segued and distracted because Fallen and different bits and bobs, and there were elements of them were abandoning stuff to go pursue what they thought were Fallen. So yeah, not everybody kind of stuck to their guns equally. The Blood Angels had their Black Rage moment, which tactically wasn't great, but the end result kind of maybe helped.
Worked out.
So
there's a few little things, isn't there?
There is.
So if like the Emperor's Children and all the other Chaos ones that went a bit feral, if they didn't go a bit feral and they stuck to their plan, it could have been a completely different thing.
Yeah. And equally as well, the other thing that's really interesting is there's something on, if you're bored and you've got like 4 hours to kill.
Always.
Whenever that happens. There's something on YouTube called the Daunian Heresy, which is they tell the whole story again, but the Primarchs are flipped. So instead of it being Horus as the War Master, it's Dawn.
Oh.
So the person rebuilding the defenses on Terror is Perturabo rather than Dawn, and it tells you the whole story. So Rus falls, Sanguinius falls, Angron stays loyal, and it's the different nuances of how that would work and how effective it would be. So that's worth a look as well, because that's quite interesting. But it was very fine margins over who won. And I think that was by design. You like I said, humanity wins, but at what cost? It was the cost was really high, and they came really, really close to losing everything. So you could argue, like, why did Horus open the shield on the Vengeful Spirit? Like, he could have just stayed there, and they were going to win. If he'd stayed there, they were going to win. And he could have dealt with the Emperor when he had overwhelming numbers. But for some reason, at that point, until that shield dropped, the Emperor wasn't even considering getting off of the throne, because there was no point. He couldn't do anything. So he was just stuck on the throne. He could have wiped out everybody except the Emperor. But for some reason, he dropped the shields. And whether that's Zinch playing mind games, people have speculated about, was it Alpha Legion? Because people still don't know whose side Alpha Legion are on. Did Alpha Legion, was it sabotaged by the Alpha Legion to open the shields?
I did hear or read something about that. Yeah, one of the theories.
There's all sorts. There's theories that there are still Alpha Legion that haven't been activated, that are in stasis and haven't been activated underneath the palace, that were there before Dawn started building fortifications and are just waiting on a word to activate them, and their suits have kind of got them in stasis. There's all sorts of weird stuff.
Because underneath Terra, there's like big prisons and holes for all sorts of weird and wonderful crap.
It's mental. It's mental.
Yeah.
Absolutely mental.
So that'll be another thing that we'll have to research that and see what we can come up with for an episode. What is under Terra?
Yeah.
That'll be. But yeah, happy days.
So that is the Horus Heresy.
That's it.
Yeah, more or less. That's it.
Okay, excellent. But how many books did you say it was?
So it's like over 60 books now.
Over 60. And you've just explained 60 books is Erebus ruins everything.
Yeah, and I wasn't fucking wrong, was I?
Well, no, not really. Not really, no.
Exactly.
So, right, well, thank you very much for listening. And the next episode will be the penultimate, that's the correct word, and I liked using it, episode for season 1.
So, absolutely.
Yeah, season 1 was all about the basics of the story, the people in it, etc., and where we're up to now. The next episode is the last one in the season, and that will be all about, now you know about 40k and 30k. What can you do with it?
Yeah, so we'll cover all of the other stuff. So all of the media, we'll look at some of the models, some of the tabletop stuff. We'll just talk about everything. We'll just kind of wrap it all up with a nice shiny bow on it.
Yeah. And then you know then. But don't just end it there. There will be a season 2. So, you know.
Yes.
It doesn't mean you have to stop listening.
No, that would be rude.
Yeah,
and I think next season we should start with Last Time I'm Lost. Get a voiceover guy.
Oh, yeah, definitely the voiceover guy. I can do sort of the X Factor-ish voice. Oh, no! Okay. No.
Not that again.
We'll hire someone.
Let's continue.
All right, well, thank you for listening, and we will catch you in the next and last episode.
Thanks, guys.